Our top story of the day, Anthony Davis wants to change his scenery. The 25-year-old superstar has demanded a trade, according to Woj, just a few weeks ago. Listen to this. Following a loss to the Nets on January 2nd, the Brow was asked about whether the losing would lead him to play elsewhere.
At what point do you say to yourself, I don't want to play on a team that's 14th in? I mean, you played on Team USA. You played on outstanding teams.
What's your, just your frustration level right now with the way things are going in general? You're optimistic that things can get turned around?
No, like I said, the frustration is just that we're a better team than our record show. Everyone's frustrated. Players, coaches, front office, we just have to be better.
Well, the frustration comes in the midst of yet another disappointing season. The Pelicans look like they might have turned the corner last season, winning their first playoff game and then their first series since Davis arrived. But they're 22-28 this season and on pace to miss the playoffs for the 5th time in Davis's 7 seasons. Tony and Mike have much more on the Brow wanting out of New Orleans.
All right, Wilbon, where would you like to see Anthony Davis land?
I got a novel idea.
Go ahead.
How about if Anthony Davis stays in New Orleans?
Doesn't seem to want to.
No, he doesn't, Tony.
No.
And look, it's great fun for the league and people who love basketball and watch it incessantly like I do if he's with the Lakers or the Celtics. That's the history of that league. But you know what? I thought New Orleans had done something. When they beat Portland in the playoffs last series, they had a game off of Golden State. Drew Holiday, Mirotic found a spot that's great for him. They picked up Julius Randle before this season. Each-one Moore is a good combo guard, who's better than a rotation player. I thought, okay, Anthony Davis is one of the best players in the league.
Yeah.
Why can't New Orleans, why do you have to go to a big market? If I'm a small market owner, this would depress the hell out of me.
Yeah, well, what Anthony Davis is saying through Rich Paul is, I can't do this by myself. I'm not a good enough player. I got to go where the better players are. And what this leads to is the same comment we make all the time, that LeBron James has changed the face of the NBA and maybe all of sports. LeBron James is the emblem for the power of players. LeBron James said goodbye to Cleveland the first time around, went to Miami, went to Cleveland, went to LA. He's a perpetual free agent. LeBron James is that important, and he is saying to Anthony Davis, you come with me and we're going to win titles.
Wait a minute.
It's all about LeBron.
If LeBron James is empowering other players,
yes.
then why don't those players say, I'm empowered to go wherever I want. I don't need to hook up with you.
He doesn't necessarily have to, but you know what? It's fun. It's fun. Everything about the NBA is LeBron-centric. The coverage on this network is LeBron-centric.
Absolutely.
LeBron James is the biggest star in sports.
I hope he stays with New Orleans. You're a big city.
Well, he's not going to.
You are.
He's not.
Just a big city.
Where are you going tomorrow? Where are you flying tomorrow?
Los Angeles.
Okay,
That's it. It's warm there. We're done back to you.
Seriously,
don't listen
what
to him.
are we talking about?
No, don't listen.
Mr. Small Market, going to L.A.
A great point, Tony. Okay, so which team has the most assets to get Davis? It is Boston, and by a mile. Over the next 3 seasons, the Celtics could have as many as 6 first-round picks, including up to 4 this season alone. Their own first-round pick and the better first-rounder from either the Kings or the Sixers. They'll also get the Grizzlies pick if it's not in the top 8, and the Clippers pick if it's not top 14. So, the designated rookie rule is what makes it tough, though, for the Boston Celtics. The rule states that teams can have up to 2 designated rookies on their roster at a time, but only one of them can be acquired via trade. And they've already got Kyrie Irving under that rule. So, the only way Boston can land AD now is if they get rid of Kyrie. Probably not going to happen. Otherwise, they can't trade for Davis until July 1st, which is when Kyrie will likely decide to become an unrestricted free agent. Celtics head coach Brad Stevens was asked about all of this just a few minutes ago.
Coach, big news today. Anthony Davis has requested a trade from the Pelicans. I know obviously you can't comment specifically, but what's your reaction when you hear something like that?
That I can't comment. You don't really pay attention to any of it until it crosses your desk from somebody that's involved in the conversations.
See, that's how you handle the no tampering rule. Brian Windhorst joins us live now. Let's start there. What are you hearing from inside the Celtics organization, Brian?
Oh, they're paying attention to it, Sage. They've been paying attention to it for a long time. This is something that has been on their radar. They've been aware of this obscure rule, and they've been concerned that this day would come. They knew that they would have a better chance to trade for Anthony Davis in the summer than if he asked to be traded during the year. and this did not make them happy. What they are hoping is that the Pelicans will show patience. They are going to show patience. They're not trading Kyrie Irving. They want to pair Kyrie Irving with Anthony Davis, but they are going to sweat it for these next 9 days. If Anthony Davis is still a Pelican at 3 p.m. next Thursday, the Celtics' chances of getting him in the summer explode. If there's serious talks between the Knicks or Lakers between now and then, the Celtics are going to sweat. This is a scenario they've been preparing themselves for weeks, Sage.
So it's Celtics and then, of course, Lakers. That's the team that we've heard really from day one. A lot has to happen if they want to land him, though, by the February 7th deadline, Brian. What could happen between now and then, I guess?
Yeah, the only thing I think that is left for Anthony Davis is to directly demand a trade to the Lakers. He'll probably face an additional fine, but he's giving up $80 million by asking out of New Orleans in a Supermax. I don't think a few $100,000 extra would really matter to him. The thing about it is when you talk to people in the league, Sage, they are not impressed with the Lakers' offer. And not only that, the Pelicans would have to immediately start evaluating these Lakers players for contracts. For example, Brandon Ingram is due an extension after this season. I do not think that the Lakers are in the best position, but I will say this, if they're going to get Anthony Davis, it's going to be in the next 9 days. After that, their hopes are the inverse of the Celtics. They diminish greatly.
And people at home should not forget that Anthony Davis is the exact same agent as LeBron James and Rich Paul. Brian Windhorst with...
Say that's the message from the NBA during Super Bowl week.
Good point.
Happy hour somewhere, and right now those smiles might be coming from L.A.
Maybe, yes. Here's the thing. We had a Woj bomb dropped on us this morning, and it's one that will have a ripple effect throughout the NBA as Anthony Davis wants out of the Big Easy. That's right, it was a Woj bomb. It took place at exactly 7:09 a.m. Eastern time, and it took the NBA world by storm. Our Adrian Wojnarowski saying this. Agent Rich Paul has notified the New Orleans Pelicans that all NBA forward Anthony Davis has no intention of signing a contract extension if and when presented, and that he has requested a trade. Paul told ESPN on Monday, and quote, reaction from the Pelicans today, starting with head coach Alvin Gentry.
Do you expect anything to happen before the deadline?
That way you'd have to take up with Dell and Mickey.
If you were to get injured, you would lose leverage as far as being able to have him as a trade asset. From that standpoint, does that leave you wary at all to play him?
No. The simple answer is no. I mean, when guys are ready to play and he wants to, he's already made it clear that he wants to play, then we're going to play him.
Drew, what do you think this franchise needs in order to be able to keep a player like Anthony Davis?
Couldn't tell you.
When you guys you don't even start to think about why someone would leave a situation. I mean, this would be the most expensive contract in NBA history.
Right. Again, I guess Anthony's leaving, so I don't know.
Lots of questions right now, but late this afternoon, the Pelicans released a statement about the trade news. Here's part of what it says. Relative to specific talks of a trade, we will do this on our timeline, one that will make sense for our team, and it will not be dictated by those outside of our organization. We have also requested the league to strictly enforce the tampering rules associated with this transaction, end quote. So this news comes 10 days after Davis injured his left index finger, suffering a volar plate avulsion fracture in the Pelicans' loss to Portland. So far, he's missed 4 games. The Pelicans have lost 3 of them. Davis was expected to miss 1 to 2 weeks with the injury on his non-shooting hand, and again, that was 10 days ago. He is still out for now. As for his contract situation, the 5-time All-Star can become a free agent next year, the summer of 2020. He could sign a 5-year max deal worth $240 million if he re-signs with the Pelicans. But now, again, Woj is saying Davis's agent Rich Paul has made it clear he will not sign it. So if he gets his wish to be traded before then, he can re-sign with the team, but only get $205 million with the team that he's traded to. If he doesn't get traded and leaves next summer as a free agent, the max he can get is 4 years, $152, so a significant difference financially. The man who broke the story, Adrian Wojnarowski, joins me now. And first, Woj, let's start with New Orleans. The Pelicans maybe thought about this coming. The news drops today, thanks to you. What are they going to do?
Well, there was an expectation that this was becoming an inevitability, and they got it this weekend, and they've got 10 days until the trade deadline. New Orleans is in no rush to do a deal for Anthony Davis. Remember, as you said, he's under contract all the way through next season, and for them to do a deal between now and February 7th, I'm told they've got to be overwhelmed with an offer that they can't believe would be available later for them. And that's going to be difficult to do, especially because the Celtics won't be involved between now and the trade deadline because they can't do a deal until later in the spring because they have Kyrie Irving on the roster.
Okay, so we'll break that down because that is a little bit confusing. So that's New Orleans right now. What about Anthony Davis? Of course, he's out with the finger, but what's he going to do?
Well, the one thing that he and Rich Paul have left to do between now and the trade deadline is, let's say there's no traction on a Lakers deal. They could essentially tell the organization, and they can tell the rest of the league, that we're only going to sign an extension with the Lakers. So if you trade us somewhere else, I'll be a rental player. I'll go to LA in 2020. That may not stop teams from going ahead and doing it anyway, but it does put some pressure and it might depress the market. But ultimately, New Orleans still has control because they're the ones who decide if there's going to be a trade or not.
The Lakers, of course, have been a topic for a very long time. You go back to December when there was talk of tampering, when LeBron answered the question about having AD there. By the way, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, both represented by Rich Paul. So Magic Johnson and company, what's he doing right now? Because we got 10 days till the deadline.
They've got to put together their young players, draft picks, their best assets outside of LeBron James, and make a compelling offer to New Orleans. Remember, 2 years ago, they didn't do it with Indiana with Paul George. They thought they'd get him in free agency. They didn't get him. Kawhi Leonard, they didn't make an overwhelming offer to the Spurs. Thought they'd get him in free agency. They're trailing heading into this summer with Leonard. Right now, they have an opportunity with Davis to try to find a way to get a deal done. But the Lakers may not have the kind of assets that just make New Orleans do this now. The Pelicans may just wait to see what Boston can do post-trade deadline. Explain that. It is a little confusing. Why can't they do anything now? Because of the provisions of the contracts that Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis both have. Like, you can't have two of those designated player exception contracts on your roster at once. They need Kyrie Irving to get into free agency on July 1. Then they can do it. But they could agree to a trade in principle around the draft, prior to the draft, finalize it on July 1. But essentially, Boston, who has coveted Anthony Davis for a long time, they need to, what they'll probably do is tell New Orleans, put the brakes on. We're going to make you a big offer at some point. You got to wait for the trade deadline to pass, and let's get to the offseason. They certainly have the most assets, but remember, Anthony Davis said this recently. It isn't about the money. It's about going to the right team and establishing a legacy. We'll see how this plays out. Woj, stand by. Kevin, over to you.
Sage, the Brow is just the latest superstar to request a trade. Remember, 2 summers ago, Paul George said he wanted out of Indiana. He was traded to the Thunder less than a month later. Around that same time, Kyrie made it clear that he no longer wanted to play alongside LeBron in Cleveland. By the end of the summer, he had been dealt to Boston in a blockbuster trade. Last season, we had the Kawhi Leonard saga. After months of speculation about possible tension between Leonard and the Spurs regarding his quad injury, Kawhi was traded to the Raptors this past offseason. Most recently, Jimmy Butler had his falling out with the Timberwolves and was eventually dealt to Philly and the Sixers. Another star who famously changed teams, Kevin Durant, was asked earlier today if trade demands are a topic among players.
AD wanted to play basketball somewhere else. Like, it's not like the president shutting down the government. It's just basketball. So of course we talk about it. And we all, as players, we want guys to do exactly what they want to do in this league. We have a short amount of time, so why not do what you want?
Great to have Jalen Rose with us here on SportsCenter. Woj just said this: the Pelicans are in no rush when it comes to pressure and expectations. What's on the line here for the Lakers in the next 10 days to acquire Anthony Davis before that trade deadline?
Woj alluded to it. The Lakers cannot pump fake. They missed out on a couple of opportunities, in particular with Paul George. He was in an Indiana Pacer uniform, said he wanted to be the Lakers. They did not go and get him. They felt they could do it at the end of the year. He gets traded to OKC as a rental player, falls in love with it, and now he's starting in the All-Star game. Guess whose spot that he took? Anthony Davis, who has had career highs for the Pelicans in points, rebounds, assists, and steals, but yet they're in the lottery. So for the Lakers, this is basically Rich Paul and Anthony Davis saying, y'all have a 10-day contract until the trade deadline to get this done. If it does not get done, then it gets opened up to other suitors, in particular the Boston Celtics this summer.
All right, in this stare down, the Lakers can't afford to blink. And back in September, you said that we would be talking about Anthony Davis being a Laker prior to next season. What led you to make that statement back then?
Well, just talking to people in the league and understanding that's where today's game is. And to bring things full circle, when Danny Ainge brought his big three together in Boston with Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce, it was the precursor to players now controlling their own destiny through what I'm calling pre-agency. That's a year and a half before their deal is actually up, letting the team know that they don't want to re-sign. So when an MVP player like LeBron James tells the Cleveland Cavaliers, basically, I can't win a championship here, I need to go to Miami to make it happen. Now that paves the way for Kevin Durant to join the 73-win team. It paves the way for the guys that you mentioned earlier, Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving, Paul George, all of those guys, and Kawhi Leonard, to tell the teams the exact same thing. So for the Lakers, you must strike right now. And for Anthony Davis, it's really unfortunate watching his team, in particular, Drew Holiday, look heartbroken in that interview.
Yeah, you foresaw it. I'm going to take you to Vegas before the Super Bowl, Jalen. Thank you so much here for joining us on SportsCenter. So we take a look at the Western Conference. The Pelicans currently sit at 13th, ahead of only the Grizzlies and the Suns. They're 6 games back, the Clippers, for that 8th and final playoff spot. Look at the Lakers sitting in that 9th spot, 2 games out.